Every single moment there's a program running, literally here in the mind, and the mind has become so used to governing the body. The body is just it's literally its slave. Literally, it's just every single moment the body is just following. It's being dictated by the mind. And if your mind has been conditioned by fear, and especially extensive trauma, then your body is like in such a confined state. The way that it's behaving is so fear-based, and it takes so long for a human being to just even recognize this, and then a very extremely brutal and extensive process to come out of this conditioning, right? Which is literally, it's literally just the subconscious mind, which has literally taken dominance over the brain, and it's governing all of your behavior now, like literally every single moment. And the programming is running here all the time. And it's evolving as well, right? The programming learns too. Your subconscious mind is learning every single moment in your life. It's picking up information of what it can do differently to avoid the fear that it was rooted in, that it was born out of at one specific moment or event in your life. But every single moment it's doing that. Every single moment, if there's any fear, if there's anything that happens that like strikes fear in you, right? The subconscious mind is learning, because that's its job. The mind's job is to protect you from fear. That's it. And so what it does is actually very counterintuitive. Instead of letting you feel the fear, right? It produces thought here to kind of help you figure out what you're going to do. But really that thought it's actually a limitation. And more times than none, the thought is actually just a distraction from our potential, because it's a distraction from being present. Because what ends up happening is that we're just going through the motions of life, just according to however this mind is behaving, whatever the programming is here. And so your programming could be from when you were a child, right? There could be very deep-rooted programming in you, and very extensive programming in you from when you were 4 years old, 3 years old, a baby even, that you're carrying decades throughout your life. And there are people that even die with this programming. Most people do. But the goal of life really is to help free you, as in help you achieve your potential, which is synonymous with truth, joy, peace, love, freedom. It's synonymous with serving at our highest capacity that we're able to as human beings. And that goes for each of us, each of our unique capacity, our unique ability, and our unique highest contribution. And so each and every single one of us has this sort of climb out of the fear that we've experienced in our life. And some of us have a greater climb than others. And it's because we've experienced more trauma, we've experienced, or we experience more fear than other people, that really, you have to, it pushes us, it provokes us to make the climb. And, that can be a really beautiful thing, because they say, the most beautiful people and the most successful people have the most extraordinary journeys. And they also have extraordinary depth, because they understand this climb. They've experienced it. They have gotten to know themselves, and they have gotten to know human nature, what human nature is, as they have performed the climb. And so it's not that we wish anything, remote of suffering onto anybody. We truly don't as human beings. And given the choice ourselves, we wouldn't opt for it. We just wouldn't. But life somehow happens for us to propel us into our potential, to propel us to grow, and literally to compel us as if now we have no choice. And there's a point that comes in your life where it's just, this whole time you experienced moments of, the pain, for the bud it became greater for it to stay closed than to open. And now life brings you to the ultimate, right, like awakening, the ultimate bud of buds, where this pain now is like all of life's pain accumulated, that now you have literally climbed out of your own like trajectory of suffering in your life since you were a child, right? Since as early as you can remember, like the first memories that you have of pain, and millions of moments in your life that are just of pain that you've now healed and sat with and looked at, because they formed your entire subconscious programming, which has made your survival identity that you've been living up, up until this point, living as, and that yourself to be like, right? How you define yourself, right? And it's really just it's your personal identity, which is just fear-based. And if you think about it, the way that we are as children, we don't have any sort of idea of how we are, or constructs of how we are. And as children, we're always, right? We're mean, we're kind, we're generous, we're compassionate, we're ruthless, we're unforgiving, we're everything. And at our core as human beings, like that is what our essence is. We are everything. But it's only out of fear that a human being goes through his life and reaches a certain point where he starts to operate in a certain way, right? He leans toward being one way more than the other. And sort of in this way, actually, absolutely in this way, imbalances are created in his character, where he overthinks or overfeels or overindulges or overdoes, over speaks, there's just so much of like there's a compensation going on for the over, the under, that's happening within him. And so life really is like it's about correcting that imbalance. And for so many of us, maybe for all of us, right, we don't actually know where the imbalance is. We might have an idea, but we actually don't know until we come out of it. And that's why the process and period of awakening and healing is the most sacred journey that we truly, that we go on. Whatever this process looks like for you, right? Whether it's seeing, right? Being able to look, reflect, or whether it's feeling and healing the pain of your life. For many people, it's a accumulation of, of everything, right? Spiritual awakening is feeling, healing, looking, seeing, understanding. Of course, it's everything. Until the entire programming here is completely dissolved, or is dissolved enough, right, for you not to believe in it. And there comes a point really where your behavior starts like transitioning more and more out of like the subconscious programming. You find yourself like behaving differently. And it's like the ways that you were triggered before, like now, like there's like, now you're in them, they become your strength. Now they're like a specialty of yours. Like, oh yeah, I can serve in that way. I can help people in that way. I can help people who feel triggered with their mom in that way. I can help people who, have, really worry about, being barefaced and not having, having their appearance upkept. Like I can help them be on camera. I can help them, FaceTime or, be seen in public. I can do all these things now because these are the ways in which I've struggled in my life. And that really is the point of life. It's the absolute point. It's to serve in the way that you struggle. And you should be so honored and so grateful, because many of you are doing this already, right? You've realized, that maybe even your career, maybe you've had massive success with kids or, adults in some capacity of service so far, where you've genuinely made such an impact. But now there's a period in your life that's going to come, and we call it awakening in spirituality, where you are literally going to look at the deepest rooted patterns. You're going to actually look at this programming and you're going to sit with it. You're going to sit with it until it leaves, until it gets so clear that you start moving again. And what that looks like for you, you won't know ahead of time. It's just life. It happens very naturally. And we call it spiritual awakening because, it's this period of like, oh my God, we don't know what's going on in our life. And like, we're just kind of sitting and doing nothing all day. All we're doing is like sitting with this and looking at this like 24/7, because it really is a full-time job. It's literally like giving birth. And you experience like in very many ways the constant death like of the person that you were. Like it literally feels like, like you're dying. And you feel the pain of that. And you mourn that old person, right? And your psyche here has so much work to do in rearranging itself, right? There's so much like, confusion and disorientation and chaos, literally, because not chaos so much, but disorientation, because, well, all of it truly is chaos, because you don't really know where you're broken until you're healed. And that's really the beauty of life, is that we're given, unconditional love, right? Like the blindness is the unconditional love. And that's so, so remarkable. I was just watching a Netflix show called OA, which stands for The Original Angel. And it talks about near-death experiences, and how the main character actually experiences a near-death experience in her childhood. She has an accident, a bus accident, where she dies, and when she comes back to life, a few minutes later, she's blind. And so this idea that like the mind, in order to cope, right, we can have really traumatic things happen. And in order to cope, the mind will take, it'll cope by, making you blind or making you mute, like you're unable to speak or whatever it is. And what it is actually, it's just it's a mental, it's something that happens probably rooted in our subconscious mind. I'm not sure actually what that, how that actually, operates, that sort of mechanism that happens from severe trauma. But it's really, it's almost like that part of the brain, the fear-based part of the brain, sends a signal to the other parts of the brain that sort of, control these other, let's say speaking or, sight or whatever. So it sends a signal and tells them to shut down. Like the mind's one job really is to protect you. And it's what the mind itself is just a coping mechanism for reality. It's a coping mechanism for life. And so it's like no wonder that, something like that can happen. And, that's for an extremely traumatic event, right? Like coming back from being dead, from actually your heart stopping. Now, if your heart is still going, right, other things, can happen that are less traumatic maybe, that don't really have a chance of, such severity. But what happens is that your personality becomes altered, and that new personality takes over your conscious mind. It's almost like the fear-based personality is now allowed to sit on the throne and act as you, and you don't know it because you're just, it's the new you. There's no difference to you, like you can't tell. And so you're just operating the same way you were as before, but now you've just got a different personality and you have no clue. And maybe it's a really stroke of luck when we have people in our life that can point that out for us, maybe even in a loving way, or even better yet, serve as the remedy for that pain that we carry under that personality. And that really is the work of life, right? When you talk about your highest service and your highest contribution, when you experience spiritual awakening, you start to serve. Ultimately, you serve in the ways that you were wounded. And it's so crazy because it's literally like, let the light enter, my wound. And what happens when the light hits it is like, it becomes phenomenal. It becomes unstoppable, as in its growth never ceases. And maybe that's also a purpose of the ego. It's like this way that I sort of struggled in my life and that I feared so much, right? That very way, like it becomes my strength. It's almost like, armor. My armor became like my shield, almost like my sword. But it's like the thing that now I don't use to protect myself, but it's the thing that I use to cut like the evil in the world, or the evil in somebody else, which is really just I'm serving. I'm serving from a place of truth. And what that sword looks like very often is just love. It's just kindness. And I think that's so valuable for us human beings, is especially today. I mean, and maybe that's always the case that we say that, right? It's always going to be valuable, but the more information that's spread and the more we find out, and about all of the hate and the evil in the world, it's just it really becomes more and more important, just on a personal level, to increase your own capacity for love and kindness, and to be able to function, right, and to bring yourself to a state of peace on a daily basis, knowing or having found out, if you watch the news or how much of the news that you watch, having found out about whatever exists in the world. It's your job to sort of maintain and to get yourself to a state where you feel well enough to serve at your highest. And so that's really the job of each of us individually, and that ultimately will be the most beneficial thing for our collective. But it really sounds like the last few years have been like just a global awakening, since the pandemic. It's just been millions of people just having their life so drastically changed. It can only lead to awakening. It can only lead to deeper levels of consciousness and new depths, new ways of seeing and perceiving, and so many misbeliefs shed, so many beliefs shed, so many lies and mistruths shed. And so it's really a great awakening that is upon us as human beings, and a period that we've never seen before. But after every single storm in history, there's always been a period of renaissance, of great love, of great peace, of great joy. And we're just embarking on that now. And so many of us are coming out of our cocoons, out of our apartments, out of our cars that we've been living in, if we've been homeless or wherever we've been staying. And so many of us are emerging with new eyes and new hearts and clearer minds and new truths. And so this time, more than anything, and more than any other time in history, is going to be really, truly the most special one the world has seen yet. And there's so much in store, just on a, not just on a technological advancement basis, but there's so much in store just for humanity, just for the kindness and the love and the strength that that we've attained in the last few years, that is now going to be, it's now coming forth in a way to serve each other in the highest way. And so it's a really beautiful time to be alive, truly. And if you've survived, if you've made it this far, then consider yourself lucky, because it's been a very rough few years for everybody. And it's really, during times like these that really, like, we sink so much in our heart, we deepen so much in our heart, and we have so much love, like, for ourselves and for everybody else. And it's really times like these that are meant for us to go deeper into the truth of who we are as human beings, and to not allow the differences to be any decision maker, and to really remember who we are as a species, as a being, as the children of the universe, of God, of love, of one fabric, just cut from the same cloth. And truly just to remember that and to keep that in our hearts is really the way to move forward, and is really going to lead to the best era that we've seen yet as a society and as a people. And there's so much love and joy and excitement arising in so many of us now, to truly be alive during this time when the tides are turning, and when we've seen so much darkness in the last few years, and we continue to see darkness, but that's really when the light shines the brightest. And so many of us are coming forward. So many people are emerging as new versions of themselves, as their highest version of themselves. And they're really stepping out of their old identity, their shell, their cocoon, their comfort, because life has sort of, given them the impetus to. And if you've survived, you should say thank you. Thank you to life for making your life a living hell, for the last few years, so that you could grow, so that you could become the person that is now meant to serve at your highest capacity. Because this is precisely what you need. And this is the awakening that many of us, if not all of us who went through it, and all of us did, we all needed it. We needed it on a personal and individual level, to come clear on the truths and the lies, right? What here wasn't true, what here was just a lie. Somebody passed it on to me, my mother, my family, society, culture, religion, whatever it was. It wasn't true to me. And I needed to be clear on that. And it's only in being clear on that I'm now a higher and better version, a truer version of myself, and one that has the actual capacity to serve in the way that I didn't have before. And so if this is you, just know that this period in your life, this time that's coming, you're going to stand up, and you're going to spread your wings in a way that in a way that you've never done before, and all of your gifts are going to come forth. And you're going to serve in the way that you've always known you've needed to, that was in line with your highest potential. And the world now is truly going to benefit from that. It's going to benefit so much from that. And it so needs that. It so needs your gifts. It so needs our gifts. It needs our light. It needs our love. And this is why so many of us are coming forth now. Because literally, the dark is over. And the light is, peeking through very strongly. And so if this resonates with you, just stay the course. Keep being you. Keep loving. Keep restoring yourself every day, on a daily basis, every moment, to what is true, the truest thing that you found here in your heart, the deepest truth, the highest truth that you've discovered here. This is what you align yourself with every single moment. And the rest will just take care of itself. I love you so much. God bless you. And I'm so excited for us. I truly am. This is going to be an era like no other. Goodbye.